You're still Billy?
Still Billy
Yeah.
Goodnick, and I'm at the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden. We're talking about native plants. I've got horticultural educator Alejandro Lemus with me. He knows everything there is about everything. I'm putting you on the spot here.
Love it.
And this time we're talking about native plants for shady situations, because as we all know, shade happens. So even in a young garden, maybe there's a lot of sun. As the garden matures, some of those plants may not be as happy as they were the first few years. Switch over to shade plants. So same idea, we're going taller. Not exactly something you build a treehouse in, but we're talking about kind of creating 3 plant combos. I call them killer combos, and we've got some really fun stuff here. So what's the big guy in the room?
Yeah, so our larger shrub here, if you're dealing with the shady slopes, say you have some native oak trees on your property or trees that are casting shade and you're looking to garden under them, one of the larger plants that we recommend would be our Ribes sanguineum, which is our chaparral currant, or our pink flowering currant, I believe it's called. So this is the white flowering currant. Really great shrub for shady areas. It can tolerate full shade or partial shade with a couple of hours of sunlight. What I really like about this plant are these white drupes of flowers you start to see in early winter. So it's one of the few native plants that starts to bloom very early in the winter time.
It's also got these really nice kind of maple shaped leaves. Yeah, and this one looks kind of sparse. This is what they do in the wintertime, right?
Yeah.
Semi-deciduous?
So these are semi-deciduous. So when you plant these in the ground, usually in the summertime, they'll drop a bit of their leaves before leafing out again during the winter season.
Don't panic.
Don't panic.
Don't
Your plant
dump
is
water on
alive,
them.
but it's just one way that the plants help conserve energy and save water in the summertime. And you can even see these buds along the stems that are going to unfurl and become new leaves. So it's quite literally part of the life cycle of the plant to go through that seasonal change.
So you get summer, fall, winter, spring, something a little different.
There's something happening every season with this plant.
So this is in shade, partial shade, doing fine. We want something to pair with it.
Yes.
And
yeah, what do we have
picked
here?
out one of my favorites. This is Gambelia speciosa,
Yes.
island snapdragon. And like its name, I'm taking over for you here.
Go for it.
As a landscape architect, this is one of my go-to plants, because where I have shady areas and we want to cover a lot of space, this is great. How big do they get?
This one gets to about 5 feet tall, 5 feet wide, and as Billy was saying, has this really nice glossy green foliage. It stays green year round. My favorite part about this plant are the red tubular flowers that it produces in shade. Really
Are we
attractive.
talking hummingbirds?
Hummingbirds.
Right,
Really
right.
attractive plant to hummingbirds if you're looking to invite them into the garden.
The other thing I like about this in shade is it's a brighter shade of green. When you put dark green leaves in the shade, they just don't pop. When you have these lighter kind of medium greens or even brighter greens, you get a little bit more presence from them.
For sure, they definitely help brighten up dark areas of the garden with its bright foliage and especially the red flowers.
Now we want to add a little sparkle down at ground level.
Yeah.
What'd we pick out?
So
Here's one.
we picked out,
I love
what do
this
we pick
plant.
out? Island alum root, or Heuchera maxima. This is actually an endemic plant from Catalina Island. I really like the foliage on this plant. To me, it reminds me of the geraniums my mom used to grow when I was little. But it's a native plant, really nice foliage, deep green. I especially like this plant when it's mass planted.
Yes.
So it's not going to be a very large plant. The Heucheras, or a lot of our alum roots or coral bells, really only grow as wide as a foot and as tall as a foot, foot and a half with the
But
flowers.
you plant them in clusters.
But you can plant them in large groups to really make those flowers stand out. Really great one for shade.
Speaking of coral bells, this is another one of its relatives. This is another Heuchera, and there's just a whole bunch of Heuchera cylindrica. Who did that?
Ooh.
Don't we know them as Heuchera sanguinea usually? Anyway, there's a lot of different varieties of this in light shades of pink, dark shades, almost maroon colored,
Yes.
white flowers.
This
And
one
it's
here is
like-
white flowered.
And it's
Yeah.
like the baby brother, kind of a bone ivory colored white, and beautiful stems. In my garden, when this is all done blooming and the stalks bloom, I just leave them forever because they're a nice kind of bright shade of brown.
Yeah, it's definitely a
which looks
great plant to brighten up shady gardens, especially like we were saying when they're mass planted in huge groups.
So we've got ribes in the background, then we drop down to the Gambelia or island snapdragon. So we've got red, white, pink, all going on in the garden. Santa Barbara Botanic Garden, come up for the fall sale, come up for the spring sale, and there'll be people here to help you pick out plants and find the right ones for your garden. Key thing is, don't baby them. They're used to it. They'll get along.